Obviously, the live show is a big part of it, and that's all on me. Um, and it is a kind of a tricky thing. So, one thought that I did want to talk a little bit about is comparing Substack to LinkedIn. So, um, a couple of thoughts as far as a going live studio, and is not actually comparing Substack to LinkedIn. It's actually Restream. Restream at the moment clearly is a far sort of superior live uh, broadcasting tool. And I tried the studio yesterday morning. So what you're watching, what a lot of what you just watched, was an attempt at going live on Substack exclusively, and then again, the idea was that I would supplement that, go live maybe the next day on LinkedIn, which is what I've done exactly here. Didn't I can't say that it went totally exactly all as planned. But I realized, and somebody maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but my even if you go into live, you click on live on Substack, that's still recording. It's not a genuine live broadcast in the way that right now I'm talking, and presumably if somebody were to come in and say hello, then I could say, "Oh, hey, Bob. Hey, Keith. How's it going? Hey, Jennifer. What's happening? Why don't you? Hey, do you want to come on?" Kind of a thing. And I think over time, again, hopefully we'll get there. At this point in time, when you're doing a long form content show like again, it's going to take a little while before people kind of clue in, are willing to invest that time. But I think people are, when as provided that you're delivering something of value. Um, and so this is kind of where I'm going in terms of the comparison with respect to LinkedIn and Substack. I mean, still think, LinkedIn is a sort of go-to place for business networking contacts, a place to maintain your professional profile. But I have to say, that here I am live. I do have a decent network and following, and it's really more just the replays at this point. And that's kind of what you expect when you're doing long form, is that you're not obviously just going to have an audience that's going to come in and listen to you talk for. I think we've been going for about 45 minutes now, um, and especially when it's just me, right? And I'm not bringing in guests who have their audience and so forth. So all of that, to some extent, is to be expected. However, where I'm going with this is that I've come to the conclusion that Substack is really a much better sort of place in terms of outreach, community development, etc., uh, for some of the things that I'm trying to do than LinkedIn, unfortunately. I wish it was the other way around, and I hope that LinkedIn starts to make a few sort of modifications in terms of how their algorithm is working. I know there have been a lot of posts a bit about that. Here's here's my analysis, or here's my take on what makes Substack, and I think there's a few new platforms coming out that are operating in this way. But the thing that LinkedIn runs into is that at the end of the day, it's operating like a social media platform. In fact, in some ways, LinkedIn has always had a bit of an identity crisis, in the sense that it is a if you hear some buzzing there, it could just be this fly in the barn here. Um, but LinkedIn is, on one hand, it was always intended as this sort of networking business platform. At first, it was really just sort of like a jobs uh, platform, right? You post your resume. It was for headhunters and job seekers, essentially. And then it got into the sort of social media aspect of things. Now, all of these platforms, most of these platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, etc., um, TikTok, especially, those are all engineered to try to keep you engaged. They're viral oriented, and anything that keeps you doom scrolling, anything that keeps you looking at the screen, is what drives their revenue. So they're not really particularly concerned with the value of the content and what's being delivered. Now, Substack's model is kind of unique in two ways. I get the sense that it's not really gameable in the sense that you can't create fake accounts and flood the zone, and there's certain things that you can't do that ensure that it's a human platform. But more importantly than that, it's their entire business model, because it's geared towards basically generating long form content, articles, long videos, etc., and um, an opportunity for people to build an audience and then monetize that audience and create tiers. What I'm getting at with that is what that means is that Substack's financial interests are tied to their users' interests. In other words, if I were to start monetizing content on Substack, and I don't really have a big ambition to do that. I see a lot of people kind of jumping right in and saying, "Okay, here's my paid for content." I think you want to build an audience, but I'm going off track here. The point is that Substack makes money when its users and content creators make money. They are incentivized for you to be successful creating content such as this. So, as a result, I think it has sort of evolved beyond what its initial mission was, and is becoming much more of a sort of a vibrant, active place where people are actually meeting people. Um, and as I said, LinkedIn really fundamentally, that's what LinkedIn is intended to be. It's a networking platform. Um, but here I am talking for however long with a decent sized audience, and it's not getting in front of people to even just kind of check in, right? So something's I the for and that applies to a bunch of sort of posts and so on. It just seems like most people are getting siloed into their own echo chambers, and not broadening their audience on LinkedIn. And then there's a whole bunch of controls which you do want in terms of bot behavior. I get that what they're trying to prevent. I fully understand that, and I understand that that's a massive challenge. However, um, at the end of the day, they are sort of choking out real content creators, I think, it seems. And for some reason, it just seems to me like at the moment, it's hard for people to expand their network on LinkedIn, meet new people, engage in new conversations. Um, Whereas, frankly, again, in its early days, I have no. I started my Substack. I think it's now 5 days ago or something like that. So same thing. I expect no audience at this point. I'm proceeding as planned. Again, it's the repurposed content that brings people in, and that's what I'm going to keep on doing. And I think, by the way, again, for this show, as I'm working through it, again, this is only episode 2. I think this sort of more radio content version, right? Like, I mean, I could easily turn my camera on again, um, but you see who's talking. I like the way that Restream does this, by the way, so they've got my headshot in there. You can kind of tell that if there were a bunch of people in the meeting room, as audio, you just have that little visual cue to say, oh, okay, this is the person that's talking. But then it allows people to focus on audio. And Keith Keller, will certainly have a lot to say about that. Um, Being on his show in large part is what kind of pushed me over the edge to say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do a podcast version of the White Robot in pursuit of the White Robot mission, which is to bring people in. And developers are I am starting to have interesting chats with developers. I had an interesting I'll end the show on this particular subject. I had an interesting sort of phenomenon yesterday in my LinkedIn feed where all of a sudden I was flooded, absolutely flooded with nothing but posts on the subject of WordPress. Is WordPress dead? WordPress is not dead. It's evolving, some kind of language about that. And it was one person, you talk about new people's content. And in fact, again, that is a good instance where I chimed in. It was such a great opportunity for me to say, "Actually, yes, it is dead. I killed it with Studio J." And obviously, I'm being a little tongue in cheek with that, but what I'm finding is that, I mean, that's the developer community that can take Studio J and um, include that as part of their deliverables. It's primed for that because when we release version 2.0, and that's again what the whole mission of White Robot is to bring people in advance of the launch of 2.0, because the point of 2.0 is to make Studio J frictionless, like a codeless platform for all of the majority of the people who do not want to do any of this technical stuff. They think, okay, cool, Julian, you're building stuff, but actually, I don't want to spend all my time with Claude building my own modules. I want something that's click and go. Um, and most of Studio J already is, right? But there are a few barriers in terms of the first release of it. Um, but we're getting there. We're getting close. And I think at that point, then both the module library and the potential for not just a make your own ecosystem, but a real ecosystem. That was part of the interesting discussion that ended up coming out of those communications, where people were saying, but hey, Julian, WordPress has this ecosystem, and uh, they quickly kind of understood what I was saying. True, but name any single plugin within the WordPress ecosystem, tell me what it does, and by the end of the day, I could probably have you a module that will be doing that plugin. It doesn't actually need an ecosystem. It just needs people to install it and then start creating their own workflows, their own modules. And as I was kind of pointing out, it's made simple. That part is made very simple in the sense that if you are working with Claude, and you've just watched me do it, it's not giving you a bunch of files to go and install. It gives you one file, one zip file for the module zip installer. And so, once they kind of understood that aspect of Studio J and the concept around it, and on top of that, the lightweightness of it, if that's a way to say that, because of the sort of no database flat JSON file format of it, um, they do sort of start to see the benefits of it. And again, I'm hoping some of those people who engaged in those conversations do take me up on my offer to have a conversation and talk about ways that you can include Studio J as a product offering, because what you can very quickly offer is, in some ways, it's a similar offer when you're saying, here, I'll build your site with WordPress. It's a front end, it's a back end, right? Now, it's a little different in terms of how it works, but fundamentally, it's the same deliverable. And I think at the end of the day, I think even those people who have been uh, installing WordPress websites for people and companies will find, one, that yes, they are delivering a much uh, a much lighter weight, but equally sort of secure and usable tool It's in many ways much easier to customize for any individual client's needs, without the bloat. That's really fundamentally one of its major deliverables or advantages over WordPress. And then, as far as I'm concerned, every other platform, the advantages are easily a cost savings one, right? You're going to save a lot of money over Shopify. You're going to save a lot of money over Wix. Um, there's a lot of no code platforms that will end up costing you more when you start adding in all the additional features and plugins that you want, and they're all going to add bloat. And at the end, you don't own your data, and migration is going to cost you something if you decide that you want to migrate. Whereas, no matter what, people, that was one sort of, let's say, objection that somebody brought up. You know, is it? Well, again, two things. One is that the flat JSONs make it really, really, really easy to migrate your data and convert it. You could hand all of your JSON files to any AI and say, okay, I need this now to work in this new system. And you can go and train it on that new system. But on top of that, because of the way that module building system works and the fact that I'm constantly trying to take Studio J itself to the next level, um, it's something that can evolve in somebody else's environment. Somebody else could take it further than I have. So I think it has a certain longevity one way or another. Um, but anyways, I didn't mean for this to wrap up as one long promo about Studio J, but I did want to bring up the fact that yeah, that was coming up, and that on some level, these little clips and so on are getting to that developer community audience, and I think they're starting to see the benefits, and I think that's fantastic. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for listening. We are at the hour mark, and I think that is a good point for me to certainly wrap it up if I'm alone. Um, I'm still looking for guests. In the next episode, I'm going to build that uh, module, that tool, and a page that'll make it very easy for people to come in and say, hey, here's what I want to talk about. Here's, yes, I can do this time. Um, it should be that should be fun. So I'm looking forward to the next episode, and I'm sort of looking forward to re-watching this and determining how I messed some things up, because I know I did. I know I did. But anyways, thanks for watching, everybody, and take care. So that's where I think the advantages with that. Oh, we got something. Oh, and it's definitely a modification of the original image. Um, and I have to say that it's maintaining character consistency pretty well, like as far as the original image versus okay, I don't know if I quite smile like that. Um, but it's not bad.
Give it pack. We build it lot today. Give it pack. Now I have to say,
why waste time? That seems kind of iffy when you can now make your Giphies in a jiffy. White Robot. If you don't know what to do with AI, maybe you should give White Robot a try. Maybe linger, get by free before.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to give us a like and follow now, you hear?